Every person carries an invisible battlefield within their mind that nobody else can see. What if you could learn to calm those internal storms using ancient wisdom? This isn't just about feeling better temporarily. It's about fundamentally rewiring your relationship with your own thoughts, transforming the very landscape of your consciousness from a war zone into a sanctuary. There are days when you awaken feeling mentally clouded, as if yesterday's worries have settled like a thick morning fog that refuses to lift. You maintain external composure, going through the motions of your day with a practiced smile, while internally the mental chatter never ceases, a relentless committee of voices analyzing, criticizing, and forecasting doom. Part of you desperately desires tranquility, a quiet corner in your own mind, while another part endlessly replays errors, anxieties, and conversations you wish had unfolded differently. This internal division is the source of profound exhaustion. The Stoic philosophers, thousands of years ago, recognized a profound truth. True self-mastery begins with thought mastery. They understood that we don't control the world, but we do control our judgments about it. Every choice you make, every feeling you experience, every response you offer to the world originates in the fertile ground of your mental landscape. If your mind represents this ground, your thoughts become the seeds planted there. Poisonous seeds, thoughts of inadequacy, resentment, and fear yield toxic growth that chokes your peace. Healthy seeds, thoughts of acceptance, courage, and perspective produce liberation and resilience. The quality of your life is, therefore, directly determined by the quality of the seeds you allow to take root. Your mind is the soil where your reality grows. This is not a metaphor to be glanced over. It is a psychological and philosophical principle. The narratives you repeat to yourself, the interpretations you assign to events, stories you believe about your past and your potential, these are not passive observations. They are active creators of your experience. A mind fertilized with self-compassion and rational judgment will yield a life of purpose and equanimity, even amidst external challenges. A mind contaminated with self-loathing and catastrophic thinking will yield a life of anxiety and suffering, even in the midst of external comfort. The greatest danger in this process lies in failing to recognize when your thinking has become contaminated. Most people live their entire lives accepting every mental notion as absolute truth without ever questioning its validity. They mistake the map for the territory, believing the anxious voice in their head is reporting reality rather than interpreting it through a filter of past conditioning and biological impulses. This automatic fusion with our thoughts is the default human condition, but it is not our destiny. But today marks a different approach. Today we embark on an interior expedition, a journey not to a distant land, but into the vast, often unexplored territory of your own awareness. Our mission is to purify your thinking, to liberate yourself from the harmful patterns that keep you trapped in cycles of suffering, and to restore the mental clarity that is your birthright. This is a practical path, not a mystical one. We will be guided by the enduring, battle-tested insights of ancient Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, combined with the validating discoveries of contemporary psychological science. This fusion of ancient wisdom and modern understanding provides a powerful framework for genuine transformation. First, the foundation of conscious observation. Genuine mental freedom, the kind that remains unshaken by external circumstances, originates in a single, learnable skill: awareness. This is not the abstract, vague kind of awareness, but the specific, moment-to-moment capacity to witness your thoughts as they arise without immediately becoming entangled, identified, or swept away by them. It is the ability to host your thoughts without becoming their hostage, Most individuals spend their entire existence believing they are identical to their thinking. There is no space between the thinker and the thought. When a destructive notion emerges, "I'm inadequate, I'm going to disappoint everyone, they are all judging me," they accept it as an unassailable report of reality, and in that very moment, they forfeit their freedom. They have handed the keys to their emotional state over to a random, often irrational, mental event. The Stoics taught a powerful lesson through metaphor. While you cannot command the wind, you can always learn to adjust your sails. Your thoughts are the ever-changing wind, sometimes a gentle breeze, sometimes a gale-force storm. Your awareness is the sail. You may not be able to stop the stormy thoughts from coming, but you can learn to navigate through them without being capsized. To deepen this understanding, picture yourself as the entire ocean, not merely the surface waves. The turbulent waters may rage above, whipped by the winds of circumstance, gossip, and misfortune. But beneath the turbulent surface exists a realm of profound stillness, constant, undisturbed, and unaffected by the temporary chaos above. Your essential awareness is that deep, silent water. The goal is not to eliminate the waves, but to learn to rest in the depths, to identify with the vast ocean of your consciousness rather than the temporary weather patterns of your mind. Modern psychology calls this skill cognitive diffusion. It is the art of separating your identity from your thoughts. It creates a crucial psychological space. Instead of declaratively stating, "I am a failure," you learn to note, "I am having the thought that I am a failure." This subtle grammatical and mental shift is deceptively powerful. It transforms the thought from a statement of fact into a passing object of observation. The moment you recognize and verbalize, "I'm having a thought," you perform a magic trick of consciousness. You step out of the illusion that you times are times the thought. The thought, once a tyrant, becomes a transient visitor. It loses its controlling power, no longer defining your essence. It simply passes through the vast sky of your awareness, a cloud formation that appears, changes shape, and eventually dissipates. Marcus Aurelius, while governing a vast empire, constantly reminded himself of this. He wrote that the mind is like the sky. Clouds of fear, desire, and anger may temporarily obscure it, but they are never its fundamental nature. The blue sky is always there, even when hidden. This represents the very bedrock where liberation begins, not when you have only positive thoughts, but when you can observe even the negative ones without automatically reacting, believing, or obeying them. Second, the liberating practice of release. Now, bring your attention to a common mental habit. Have you noticed your mind compulsively dwelling in the unchangeable past, replaying events where every mistake has already been finalized? Or have you felt it drifting into the imagined future, constructing elaborate theaters of worry about scenarios that do not even exist and may never come to pass? If so, you are not alone. You are experiencing a universal human tendency, a default setting of the human nervous system. We carry our historical baggage like a collection of weighted stones in a heavy backpack, and we call this memory. We label our chronic anxieties about the future as preparation or being realistic. But in sober truth, both of these mental time travels often represent different forms of self-inflicted suffering. We are, as the saying goes, being punished by our memories more than by our past, and being tortured by our fantasies more than by our future. The Stoic philosopher Seneca observed this with stunning clarity. He wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And further, "He suffers more than necessary who suffers before it is necessary." We have a tendency to endure our difficulties twice, sometimes 10 times over, once in the actual event and countless more times in the private cinema of our minds. The Stoics had a term for this: voluntary suffering. This is the extra pain we generate and layer on top of life's inevitable pains by our refusal to release what we cannot change. Let this sink in. Nobody is standing over you, compelling you to continually reopen wounds that have scarred over. No external force demands that you rehearse the worst-case scenario like a nightmare on repeat. You are the one performing these actions. And because you are the one doing it, you also hold the power, latent though it may be, to cease doing it. Consider this powerful analogy. When you clutch a burning hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else, who is the first person to get severely burned? The answer is painfully obvious. You are. The coal sears your own flesh long before it reaches its intended target. The same mechanics apply to your mental state. When you actively harbor bitterness, nurse apprehension, or cradle remorse, the initial and most profound casualty is always your own inner peace. You are the one sitting in the smoke of a fire you refuse to put out. Therefore, to genuinely purify your thinking, you must diligently practice the art of release. This is not release through forced forgetting, which is usually impossible, but release through understanding and conscious choice. It is not something you do because the people who wronged you necessarily deserve your forgiveness, but because you deserve tranquility. Your consciousness, your one and only mind, warrants a clean, uncluttered space in which to exist. If you truly wish to cleanse your thoughts, you must begin with the disciplined, daily practice of letting go. Consciously release the tight grip of regret over events that are now set in the stone of history. Release the simmering anger you hold toward those who are no longer present in your life, understanding that holding on to it binds you to them in a chain of suffering. Release the undefined, shadowy fears that you nourish and give substance to each night before you sleep. The what-ifs that have no face and no certain outcome. The practical method is this: sit in quietness, breathe slowly and intentionally. Visualize each inhale as drawing in clear, cleansing air, and each exhale as a gentle tide, washing away the residue of these mental burdens from the shores of your mind. The key is not to force it, not to struggle violently against the thoughts, and not to try to control the process with white-knuckled effort. Instead, simply permit the quiet, persistent current of present-moment awareness to carry away what no longer serves your well-being, what no longer aligns with the person you are choosing to become. This works because the mind was never designed to be a permanent storage unit or a garbage dump for every slight, fear, and failure. It was designed to be a processing center, a flowing river. Water that flows stays fresh and clear. Water that stagnates becomes toxic. Your mind functions best as flowing water, not as a stagnant pond. Third, engaging your internal judge with compassion. Within the architecture of every person's psyche exists a critical internal voice. This is not the voice you use to speak to others, but the one you hear when you are alone with your own thoughts, the running commentary on your life. This voice often speaks most powerfully and persuasively during moments of vulnerability, failure, or uncertainty. It whispers destructive mantras: "You're not good enough. Look at them. They are so far ahead of you. It's too late for you to change. You always mess things up." This voice represents what psychology calls your most dangerous internal adversary, the inner critic. It is crucial to understand that this voice is not reporting objective reality. It is not the voice of truth. More often, it is the distorted echo of past comparisons, of old emotional wounds that never fully healed, of the primal fear of social rejection and failure. It is a record stuck in a groove, playing the same fearful tune. But when you listen to it, when you nod along and believe its narrative, you grant it a life and power it does not inherently possess. You collaborate in transforming a baseless illusion into your perceived, lived truth. The Stoics approached this not with battle, but with reasoned inquiry. They taught that our lives should be guided by rational principle, not by automatic fear-based reactions. So, when that internal critical voice emerges, the strategy is not to start a shouting match with it. Do not pour all your energy into trying to violently silence it, as this often gives it more attention and makes it stronger. Instead, adopt the stance of a curious scientist or a compassionate observer. Simply witness the critic. Observe its tone, its content, its emotional charge, as if you were studying a fascinating, albeit frightened, creature. See it as you would a terrified child who is lashing out. It trembles and shouts, not because it is right or wise, but because it is fundamentally afraid of being hurt, abandoned, or deemed unworthy. Then, engage it with Socratic questioning. Gently ask your internal voice, is this thought objectively true? Can I know for certain that it is 100% accurate? Is this line of thinking helping me? Is it making me stronger, more resilient, more capable, or is it paralyzing me? What evidence exists that contradicts this harsh judgment? If the answers to these questions are negative, if the thought is neither truly helpful nor completely true, then you have the rational basis to gently, firmly release it. You are not repressing it, you are outgrowing it. Seneca touched on this when he wrote that no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is never permitted to prove his own mettle. See every single confrontation with your inner critic not as a failure, but as a rep in the gym of your mental strength. Each time you face it, question it, and choose a more rational path, you are carving a new, deeper neural pathway in your consciousness. You are building roots that lead toward genuine self-assurance, self-compassion, and practical wisdom. Therefore, the ultimate goal is not to annihilate the critical voice that is likely impossible. The goal is to transcend it, to let its chatter become background noise, like the sound of traffic outside your window, while you focus on the more important tasks at hand. Every direct, compassionate encounter where you refuse to be bullied by this voice moves you one decisive step closer to authentic psychological freedom. Fourth, cultivating the fortress of quiet presence. The ancient Greek and Roman philosophers had a specific term for a state of profound tranquility and inner peace: ataraxia. This was defined as the soul's serene stillness, a state of being completely undisturbed by the passions, noise, and inevitable chaos of the external world. It was considered the hallmark of a wise life. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled the vast Roman Empire amidst constant warfare, political betrayal, and personal loss, was a devoted student and practitioner of this state. He wrote in his private meditations, "Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Just let that sink in for a moment. This man, who held one of the most powerful and stressful positions in the ancient world, who commanded armies and made decisions affecting millions, claimed that the quietest place he could find was within his own mind. He directed legions, administered justice across nations, and yet he made it a non-negotiable daily practice to sit in silence, to commune with himself, to return to this inner citadel. He understood something that most people never fully grasp: the chaos, demands, and unpredictability of the external world will never end. There will always be another problem, another demand, another disappointment. But the chaos, times within times, the storm of reactive emotions, the ping-pong of anxious thoughts can be mastered and calmed. This is where true power lies. Quiet presence, therefore, does not signify escape from life's responsibilities. On the contrary, it represents the ultimate form of mastery. It embodies the unshakable strength of one who has learned to see through the superficial noise of life and no longer reacts to it with blind panic or automatic desire. It is that sacred, attainable moment when you sit alone in silence and realize, with a deep, calming certainty, that the voices in your head no longer control you. They are simply there, like actors on a stage, and then, when you stop feeding them your attention, they bow and fade into the background. The prescription is simple, though the practice requires discipline. Grant yourself a non-negotiable 10 minutes of undisturbed presence each day. No music, no podcasts, no phone, no social media, no external input whatsoever. It is just you, a timer, and the simple, life-sustaining rhythm of your own breath. In the beginning, you will almost certainly feel restless and agitated. Your mind, accustomed to constant stimulation, will rebel. It will leap from one thought to another like a monkey swinging through trees. It will tell you this is a waste of time, that you have more important things to do. This is normal. The key is to remain patient and consistent, like a lake that has been stirred up by a storm. If you simply stop agitating the water, if you stop following every thought and adding new waves of mental activity, the sediment will naturally settle and the water will clear on its own. In this cultivated, quiet presence, a remarkable shift begins to occur. You start to hear, beneath the static, a different kind of voice. It is not the shrill voice of fear, nor the chattering voice of social expectation. It is the calm, clear, and steady voice of your own deeper wisdom. This is the voice that has your long-term best interests at heart. From this place of inner quiet, your daily decisions gain a newfound clarity. Your actions begin to align with your true values, and your entire existence starts to find a sense of coherence and purpose that is not dependent on external validation or success. Fifth, from mental clarity to a clear and purposeful life. A disordered, chaotic mind can never create an ordered, peaceful, and purposeful life, just as a fogged or cracked mirror can never provide an accurate reflection of what stands before it. The two are causally linked. The Stoics were profoundly practical in their philosophy. They never sought peace through the futile attempt to remove all problems from their lives. They knew this was impossible. Instead, they sought peace by cultivating the inner clarity and strength to face any problem with wisdom and virtue. This is the ultimate fruit of this entire practice. When you learn to consistently observe your thoughts without being governed by them, when you practice releasing your grip on the uncontrollable, when you understand and transcend your internal critic, and when you regularly return to your inner fortress of quiet presence, you will eventually realize something profound. The external world, with all its dramas and demands, loses its former power to dictate your inner state. The hot spark of anger may still arise, but it no longer gets to drive your car. The memory of past errors may surface, but it no longer haunts you like a ghost. It becomes a neutral lesson filed away. The constant noise of the world, the opinions, the news cycles, the social comparisons, no longer has the power to pull you away from your own center, from your own core values. Instead, you naturally begin to live with intention. A mind that has been clarified through these practices sees the world with different eyes. It recognizes the profound, non-renewable value of time. It understands the preciousness of mental and emotional energy. It grasps the power of focused attention, which is the very currency of a meaningful life. A person with such a clear mind does not waste these invaluable resources on pointless arguments they cannot win, on reliving toxic memories that only cause fresh pain, or on obsessing over the meaningless opinions of others. They become shrewd investors of their inner capital. They deliberately choose to invest their time, energy, and attention in the only place where life can actually be lived, the present moment. The past is a memory, the future a fantasy, The present is the only real ground upon which you can stand and act. There is an old Roman parable about a blacksmith that perfectly illustrates this shift. Every day, the blacksmith worked at his forge, hammering glowing red steel. The loud, repetitive clang of metal on metal echoed throughout the entire village, a constant, jarring noise. One day, a villager finally asked him, "How can you possibly stand that deafening noise all day long? It would drive me mad." The blacksmith paused, wiped his brow, and smiled. He replied, "At first, I heard it too. It was all I could focus on. But then I learned not to. When I became completely absorbed in the fire, the shape of the metal, and the precision of my work, the noise just disappeared. All that remained was the work in my own two hands." Your mind works according to the exact same principle. When you learn to focus your attention on right action, on what is virtuous, necessary, and within your control in the present moment, the distracting noise of toxic, repetitive, and fearful thoughts begins to fade into the background. What once felt like an unbearable, permanent burden was never the burden itself. It was just static, background noise generated by an untrained mind. And when you finally, consistently, cease giving it your attention and your belief, you begin to hear again the quiet, steady, and powerful heartbeat of life itself. You return to what is real. Conclusion: the stillness within strength. As you diligently practice and gradually master your own mind, you will find that everything begins to transform. Not the world itself. The world will continue to be the world, with all its beauty and its brutality, but your time's perception, times of it, and more importantly, your time's reaction times to it. The things that once triggered intense anger now pass through your awareness. Like weather patterns, you notice them. You may not like them, but they don't stick around and ruin your day. The people who once caused you deep pain transform in your perception from tormentors into valuable, albeit difficult, teachers. And the committee of voices that once screamed and argued incessantly inside your head grows quiet, not because you've slain them, but because you have simply stopped feeding them your attention. A fire without fuel soon dies down. This is the authentic, resilient strength of a Stoic practitioner. It is not the brittle, rigid hardness of armored plate that shatters under sufficient pressure. It is the strong, flexible, and calm intensity of a fire that burns steadily deep within a sheltered hearth, providing warmth and light regardless of the storms raging outside the walls. Therefore, when your mind feels restless and unsettled, when your thoughts begin to accelerate down familiar, anxious tracks, remember this simple truth: you don't necessarily need more advice, more techniques, or more external noise. Often, you just need to stop. You need to sit quietly, return to your breath, and recall the most fundamental fact of your existence. The sky of your awareness is, has always been, and will always be present, vast, undisturbed, peaceful, and limitless. The clouds of thought are temporary. The sky is permanent. If this message resonated with you today, if you felt a spark of recognition that this is the path toward the peace you've been seeking, then please take a moment to like this video and follow the Stoic Mindset Mastery channel for more practical wisdom to guide your journey. To seal your commitment to this path, I invite you to share your intention in the comments below with 3 simple, powerful words. I choose stillness. Let this be your quiet vow, made to yourself, to live from this day forward with greater strength, unwavering discipline, and enduring peace. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with this single, conscious step.